On this day in crime.
It's the 20th of June 2021, and on this day in 1967, arguably the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, Muhammad Ali, was found guilty of violating the Selective Service Act of 1948 after he refused to go to war in Vietnam a couple of months earlier.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor hungry people in the mud for big powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality.
Ali had initially registered to be conscripted into the US Army on his 18th birthday in 1960, but didn't meet the testing standards due to his dyslexia. He stated at the time, "I said I was the greatest, not the smartest." 9 months after his denial from the army, and still at the age of 18, Ali had his first professional boxing bout against 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎, who was 17 fights as a pro with 8 knockouts on his record. Ali won a unanimous decision, winning all 6 rounds of the fight. With his coming of age, and over the next few years, he became the most formidable force in heavyweight boxing and secured the WBC and WBA heavyweight world titles when he beat Sonny Liston in February of 1964. Just a couple of weeks after becoming the champion of the world, Ali declared his faith to the Muslim religion and changed his name to Muhammad Ali. Prior to then, he'd gone by his birth name of Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. When Ali showed up at the Armed Forces Induction Center in Houston, Texas in April of 1967 for his scheduled induction into the Army, he refused to step forward on 2 occasions when his name was called out by Lieutenant Stephen Dunkley. A senior Army officer pulled him aside and warned him that the felony of draft refusal could cost him 5 years in prison and a fine of 10 grand. When his name was called out by Lieutenant Dunkley once again, Ali repeated his previous responses and refused to step forward. The lieutenant then screamed out Ali's birth name of Cassius Clay, but Ali's feet stayed glued to the floor and he refused to budge. He was immediately arrested and later the same day stripped of his boxing titles and boxing license. His actions and the arrest became the hot topic of society in the weeks leading up to his court date. The all-white Houston jury deliberated for just 21 minutes on this day in 1967 before they returned their verdict to Ali. Guilty. Judge Joe Ingraham was an excessive asshole and handed Ali the maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
Boo! You suck!
Fortunately, he never spent any time behind bars and remained free whilst his case was appealed. In 1971, the Supreme Court finally overturned his conviction. In 1947, New York-born American mobster and member of the Murder Incorporated crime syndicate, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, was shot to death as he sat in the living room of his girlfriend Virginia Hill's home in Beverly Hills, California. As Siegel sat with his mate, Alan Smiley, thumbing his way through the LA Times on a casual Friday night in, an unknown assailant out for blood fired the World War II standard-issue semi-automatic M1 carbine through the front windows of the house. The gunfire echoed through the streets as the .30 caliber round bullets smashed through the windows of the house and riddled Siegel's body. 2 of the shots killed him instantly as they tore through his skull and ricocheted off the walls in the house, smashing the surrounding ornaments, including a statue that stood on top of a grand piano. To this day, Siegel's murderer remains formally unidentified, and the crime still sits on the cold case shelf. In 1684, that's right, my 1684 fine fellow peasants, an English politician and officer in the English army, Sir Thomas Armstrong, was dragged by hurdle to Tower Hill in London, where he was hanged for treason after he partook in the Rye House plot, which was a plan to assassinate King Charles II the year before. Following his death, his body was quartered, with 2 quarters being displayed in London, one in Stafford, and his head was proudly displayed at Westminster Hall, to warn anyone else of the consequences of acting against the nation's hierarchy.
Ew!
In 1979, 37-year-old American ABC reporter William Stewart, better known as Bill, was murdered by the Nicaraguan National Guard at a roadblock on the eastern outskirts of the country's capital city of Managua. Stewart had been in the country for 10 days, reporting on the Nicaraguan Revolution, when he was murdered along with his 26-year-old interpreter, Juan Francisco Espinosa. The brutal execution was captured on camera by Stewart's cameraman, Jack Clark, who'd filmed the incident from inside their van just metres away. If you're morbid like me, you can find footage of this heinous execution on YouTube. Viewer discretion is advised. In 1972, Russian serial killer, rapist and pedophile Vladimir Zhukov was born in Yaroslavl. Zhukov was the kind of skid mark that you wouldn't stop to piss on if you saw him on fire. He abducted and raped 11 young girls between the ages of 7 and 12. He killed 3 children and confessed to more when he was apprehended. The world would have been a better place if he'd just arrived as a wet dream.
Your mom should have swallowed you.
And on this day, in 2003, hip-hop artist and producer 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎, whose real name is Kimberly Denise Jones, had $250,000 worth of jewellery stolen at New York's JFK airport whilst she was on her way to LA for the 3rd instalment of the BET Awards, where she'd received a nomination for Best Female Artist. And BET, for my fellow Southern Hemispherian counterparts, is the Black Entertainment Television Awards. Wanting to uphold her reputation of being a superior fashion nova, Queen Bee stuffed 250 grand's worth of platinum ice and bling, which included her signature Queen Bee necklace and some yellow diamond lace platinum dog tags, into her Louis Vuitton bag. She was planning on donning the jewellery on said night, where she could potentially be taking home some silverware for the trophy cabinet. It was actually a telling precursor for the events to follow, as 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎 only received a mere 6 nominations, 60 less than that of the winner, Beyoncé. However, she was far from last. Actually, no, she wasn't. She was second to last. Second to last equal, along with 15 other nominees. She did manage to beat Eminem though, which isn't a bad effort considering he's...
No.
What? As it happened, poor 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎 accidentally put her loaded Louis Vuitton bag through the check-in counter when she'd intended it as carry-on. She wanted to ensure that no dirty hands would get at the precious jewels, and her 4'11" stature would sure be able to protect it from any would-be thieves.
What do you think we are, thieves?
She created quite the kerfuffle at the airport when she realised what had happened and notified the airport staff of her chicken blunder. The flight was delayed as airport workers scattered and scurried to find Her Majesty's cherished Louis Vuitton bag. Upon locating the bag in the undercarriage and returning it to 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎, she noticed that the bag had been tampered with and was slightly lighter than what it had been when she'd arrived. In the following days, after widespread news reports of the airport jewellery heist, Queen Bee became the subject of an attempted extortion racket when 31-year-old John Atchison contacted Kimmy's lawyer claiming to have her ice in his possession, for which he'd returned to her for an exchange of $25,000. As it turns out, Atchison was full of shit and just wound up costing himself a bunch of charges, which included 3rd degree attempted grand larceny, 4th degree attempted grand larceny by extortion, and attempted coercion in the 2nd degree. A week later, Port Authority police found 𝙹𝚞𝚗𝚎's shining stolen stones tightly wrapped up in a rag and stowed away in a United Airlines maintenance worker's locker. It appears one of the pilfering pickpocket baggage handling bum bandits had lost his or her nerve in getting the piping hot ice out of the airport and stashed it away in an abandoned locker for a quiet rainy day. Thanks for listening, crew. Don't forget to do that thing you've been thinking about. And remember, don't crime out there.